Hey guys, Hamsterwheel here with a new video and welcome to the Ultimate Caster DPS Showdown. That's right, in this video we'll be going over each caster class and all of the viable specs they have for rating and see exactly who's the best at pulling the highest amount of DPS. Now, if you're someone that is only interested in the results and don't care for how I put this together, then click the little annotation on the screen right now. Like, right there. Last chance. Alright, since you didn't click on the annotation, I'm guessing you're curious on how I got all of this together. Well, let's start at the beginning, shall we? I decided to do this on the Dream State WoW server, because I was looking for an instant level 70 server where I can basically create characters with the same amount of gear. If I would have done this with my current characters on the Phoenix realm, then one class would have more gear over the other, and that would obviously give him an unfair advantage. Now on this server I could only choose between the Dungeon 3 armor set, so I couldn't quite get the gear that I wanted. But with the help of some gems I did manage to focus a bit more on stats that were beneficial to one class but not to another. For instance, with the Elemental Shaman I went a lot more for crit, while the Shadow Priest and Affliction Warlock I went for spell damage, as they don't really benefit from crit that much. So yeah, I did my best to give each class and spec the right gear for as far as I could. Now that we got that out of the way, I'll explain how I actually did it. So what I did was just a simple DPS test on a target dummy in a non-rating environment, meaning I was only using my own buffs. I did 5 DPS runs for each class and spec combination, and then took the average of all of those 5 DPS runs combined. So there's no chance of me having one lucky DPS run with a lot of crits, or one unlucky run with barely any crits. That way we should have a reliable baseline of each class and spec and what they can do. There were 13 class and spec combinations that I tried out, which were the Elemental Shaman, Balanced Druid, Arcane Mage, Arcane Fire Mage, Arcane Frost Mage, Fire Mage, Frost Mage, Affliction Lock, Demonology Lock, Shadow Destro Lock, Fire Destro Lock, Shadow Priest, and the Smite Priest. So I guess now there's nothing left to do but show you what each of those can do. So here we go. Alright, now let's put all of those numbers together in a neat little graph, shall we? As you can see, the ones that dominated this test were the Balanced Druid, the Frost Mage, and the Demo Lock, and the Fire Lock actually. The weakest ones were the Arcane Mage, the Smite Priest, and the Arcane Frost Mage. So putting all of that in a descending order, and we can see that we have a rather unsuspected winner, the Frost Mage. That's right, it was the only one who got even close to touching 900 DPS, and that's quite interesting considering barely anyone is rolling around with the spec. but it really shows just how powerful the spec is for PvE. It's mostly because of the extra DPS the water elemental adds, and the fact that with Cold Snap you can actually summon that pet twice in one boss fight. Not far behind we have the Demonology lock at number 2, the Balance Druid at number 3, the Fire Destro lock at number 4, and the Fire Mage at number 5. All of them hovering around the 850 DPS mark. Then we have the Elemental Shaman at number 6 with 800 DPS or so, and if you watched the footage you saw that I was only spamming Lightning Bolt. Now you could add Chain Lightning to the rotation, however, I tried that and I went out of mana way too fast, so I just had to resort to spamming Lightning Bolt, or else I would have been out of mana in less than a minute or so. The Shadow Destro lock comes in at number 7, which is a little disappointing considering how many people use this spec while raiding, and this is mainly because of the gear not being all that great. The Shadow Destro spec relies a lot on gear, and once you get tier 4 gear or up, this spec really starts to shine, but for now it has to make do with only 780 DPS. Moving on, we have the Arcane Fire Mage, which I expected to be a bit higher, but due to lack of crit rating it can get a lot of Ignite procs up, so it couldn't really do any better other than 768 DPS, which gives it the number 8 spot. At number 9 we find the Shadow Priest, and I kinda saw this one coming. They've always been suboptimal DPS compared to mages and locks, and it shows. Then we have the Affliction lock at number 10 with only 743 DPS, and to be honest I thought the spec would do better as well. Now I could swap out Curse of Elements and use Curse of Agony and get a bit more DPS, but when you go Affliction lock you usually go for Malediction, which means you want to keep that Curse of Elements up at all time. Not just for you, but for the entire raid. At number 11 we have the Arcane Frost Mage, who just like the Arcane Fire Mage is falling behind due to lack of gear. My Unusual Specs episode showed that with the right gear they can be up there with a Fire Mage, but with the current gear it unfortunately could not do any better. Then at number 12 we have the Smite Priest, a rather unusual spec, and the damage is lacking, but hey, 723 DPS on average with the gear I currently have is actually not too bad. With a few epics from heroics you could be topping 800 to 850 DPS, which is right in the ballpark of where you want to be as a fresh raider, so to be honest I'm kinda happy with the results. And then at the very bottom we have the Arcane Mage. Now the Arcane Mage is a very odd spec for lower geared mages. Usually this spec starts to shine at tier 5 gear and up, and it has often been considered as a suboptimal DPS spec if you have lower gear than that, and it shows. Being able to pull only 706 DPS, it came in last. So there you have it folks, every class in their spec and what DPS they can pull with the full blue/heroic gear. I hope you enjoyed this little DPS showdown, and who knows, I might do another one in the near future with some tier 4 or tier 5 items to see how they stack up when they got some better gear. As always, I want to thank you for watching this video. I'm Hamsterwheel, and have a good one.